Welcome to AFTERSHOCK, a humanitarian crisis game. AFTERSHOCK explores the interagency cooperation necessary to address the devastating consequences of a complex humanitarian emergency or natural disaster. In this case, an earthquake affecting the fictional country of Karana. AFTERSHOCK was originally developed for educational purposes with professional audiences, but it's also interesting to play as a gaming enthusiast. Let's open the box and find out what we have inside. First, of course, we'll find the AFTERSHOCK rulebook. It's in full color. It fully explains how to set up the game and how to play, and it also includes the resources on humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, which you may find of value, particularly if you're using it for teaching purposes, but even just if you're interested in the topic. The box also contains a series of player briefings which outline both some of the general rules of the game and also the specific priorities and abilities of each player. There's a briefing for the government of Karana, for the Humanitarian Assistance and Disaster Relief Task Force, comprised of militaries from the surrounding countries who've come to help, the United Nations, and for non-governmental organizations. In addition, a facilitator guide is useful if you're running the game for a larger group. You'll also find these game mats inside. 5 of them depict districts of the capital of Karana, Galassi. In each district, there are spaces where you can allocate your relief teams, whether to providing first-line emergency relief to those in need, rescuing those who might be trapped in the rubble, repairing critical infrastructure, undertaking security operation, or doing needs assessment, which would allow you to anticipate future needs in a given district. Each of the 5 districts is slightly different in terms of its social and economic composition, and that affects gameplay in subtle ways. You'll also find 3 displays which indicate the primary transportation nodes in the city of Galassi: the port, the airport, and finally the frontier. These boxes are your warehouses. This is where relief supplies will go before they're allocated to the various districts of the capital. One of the challenges in AFTERSHOCK, and one of the challenges that was seen, for example, in the 2010 Haiti earthquake or in the 2015 Nepal earthquake, is that there are severe transportation bottlenecks due to the damage caused by the earthquake. In the game, both the port and airport are in need of repair before they can operate at full capacity. This part of the track is used to indicate the capacity of the port or airport, and goods which cannot arrive by sea or by air have to arrive via a neighboring country and then be trucked in. And that takes much longer and it slows down the relief effort. This display is used to indicate participation in coordination meetings in the 5 cluster sectors that we have modeled in the game: health and medical, water, sanitation, food security and nutrition, shelter, and logistics. Participating in coordination meetings has a variety of in-game benefits, allowing you to do your work more effectively. And of course, coordination is absolutely essential to multilateral, multinational responses to natural disaster. But on the other hand, having teams sitting in meetings means they're not there on the front lines providing relief. And so there's always a balance you have to strive to achieve in AFTERSHOCK between doing and coordinating. This display is used to track both relief points and operation points. Relief points indicate how many people are being saved or lost. And you need a positive score here in the green in order for anyone to win the game. Operations points indicate how well each of the particular actors is doing in meeting their objectives. To win a game, you have to have both positive relief points and positive operations points. This is a cooperative game in which everyone can win, everyone can lose, or there can be both winners and losers. Finally, this calendar is the turn tracker, As you can see, the game follows the first 12 weeks of a humanitarian crisis that therefore covers both the initial emergency period and a later period of early recovery when you can begin to undertake some longer term developmental options. So those are the game mats that you'll be playing on. You'll see the box includes various markers and tokens. These indicate infrastructure repairs or the establishment of infrastructure for shelter, medical, logistics, water and sanitation, food and nutrition. These represent supplies, again of the four types: medical, shelter, water, sanitation, food and nutrition. These avatars are the teams, representing the teams that you assign to various tasks during the game. And then there are these cards. The event deck helps to drive the game. Each player will be drawing one of these cards each turn, and they have a variety of in-game effects. These effects have been drawn from the kinds of things which present a challenge in real humanitarian operations. And indeed, the game was designed in close consultation with subject matter experts. The coordination deck. The coordination cards are drawn if you're participating in cluster meetings. Most of them are positive and allow you to do things that you wouldn't be able to do if you weren't coordinating with other key actors. In this deck and in other decks, we provided some blank cards for customization purposes. Finally, the at-risk deck. These cards will be face down or face up in each district of the capital. And a card will typically tell you how many people are at risk, what the payoff is if you save or fail to save them, and what they need: medical supplies, water and sanitation, food, shelter, or being rescued. Some of the cards are emergency cards for early in the game. Others are early recovery cards for later in the game. There's a number of specialist effects, the kinds of things that happen in a humanitarian emergency: epidemic disease, squatters, cholera outbreaks, malnutrition, fires, looting and violence, and so on and so forth. Again, we've provided a number of blank cards if you want to customize the game for particular purposes. So those are the contents of the game. How do you set it up and how do you play? That's what we'll show you next. Here we've set up a game of AFTERSHOCK, a humanitarian crisis game. And we'll just show you quickly what it looks like. This is set up for the first turn. You'll find in the rules very clear instructions on how to set the game up and what goes where. At the moment, the Humanitarian Assistance and Disaster Relief Task Force hasn't yet arrived, but we do have aid teams from Karana, the United Nations, and from NGOs. And we can see how, in this initial setup, they've been placed. A UN team and a Karana team are sitting in the health cluster to coordinate their response. Karana has chosen to assign a team to emergency relief in District 1, and NGOs are busy with rescue there. There's an NGO team assigned to relief in District 4, a UN team assigned to relief in District 3. You will see in each of the districts a face-up card, an at-risk card, and it tells you what is required to meet the needs of the local population. In this case, 3 medical supplies, 2 water and sanitation, 1 food, and someone assigned to rescue. You'll notice that the media has also chosen to make District 1 its initial focus of reporting. There are supplies sitting in warehouses at the port for Karana, the United Nations, and NGO. Nothing has yet arrived at the airport or at the frontier. No one's scored or lost any points yet. And you'll notice a single infrastructure token here. That's going to limit how much can arrive. If you follow this closely, you'll see that there's a limit of 5, with before this capacity is going to be filled with a single token. Only one thing can arrive at the severely damaged port, and the players are going to have to do some repair work indicated by additional tokens before any of these things are operating at full capacity. So that's a possible initial setup. The game would be played by first the coordination phase, in which the phasing player, let's say it's Karana, chooses a coordination card randomly from the deck if they're in a coordination meeting. In this particular case, they are in a coordination meeting. They're sitting in a health and medical one. So they draw one of these cards, and they can play it if they wish. This happens to be a teamwork card, which would allow them to move a team at short notice if necessary. So they'll keep, in this particular case, they can keep that card. They would then draw a random event from the random event deck. In this particular case, it says that survivors are on the move to District 5, and you have to remove 1 food, water, and shelter from District 5. As survivors are moving out to the countryside away from the devastated city. There is, in fact, no supplies at all, no food, water, or shelter yet in District 5. And so the card tells you that if you don't meet the requirements, we have to add social unrest. So essentially what's happened in the very beginning of the game here is that survivors are moving out into the countryside. There's no aid supplies for them there, and they're protesting or otherwise upset at this. The next phase would be the human resource phase, in which Karana could move teams as necessary. Say they decide to respond to that by reallocating one of their teams to emergency relief. They can then move the supplies that they have from the warehouse. You'll notice in this district they need a couple of medical. Well, they have that in the warehouse, so they'll move those. They also need 2 wash. They have 1 water and sanitation supply. It's from these blue cubes. They'll move that there. They need some food. They don't have any food. They need someone assigned to rescue. Well, there aren't enough people rescuing right now. So they've made a start on meeting the needs of District 5, but they're not there yet. Now, because Karana happens to be sitting in a coordination meeting with the United Nations, the 2 of them could exchange medical supplies since they're sitting in the health and medical meeting. If they wanted to, the UN indeed has some medical supplies in the warehouse they could provide Karana, but in this particular case it's not worth it because the population there only needs 2 medical, which Karana has been able to provide. After Karana had allocated whatever supplies it wanted to in whatever districts, and normally they need to have a team there to do so, although Karana has a special ability that allows it to move a small number of supplies even where teams aren't allocated. After they've moved supplies, they do special operations, security operations, media outreach, and so forth, none of which they're going to want to do at this point. They rarely do those kinds of things early in the game. And finally, Karana would get additional supplies at the end of their turn, and the turn would move on to the next player. So as you can see in the way the game is designed, there's really 3 sets of things going on. You're having to decide on human resource allocation. You only have so many teams. You'll get more teams later on as the game progresses. And where are you going to put your scarce personnel when you're frankly overwhelmed with so much humanitarian need? This is a challenge that responders face in natural disasters. Secondly, there are needs. In this case, since we've just started the game, there are severe needs almost everywhere. And where are you? What is needed in each district, and what are you going to assign to try and meet those needs? You're going to have to prioritize certain areas. You're going to have to do a certain amount of triage, and so on and so forth. And you're going to have to work together with other actors because, as we just saw, Karana is unable by itself to meet the needs of District 5. It's going to require others to come in there and help meet those needs too. So the second part of the game is really making sure that you get the right kinds of resources to the right place in a timely fashion. The third part of the game is really one of supply management, logistics management. As we've noted, the port and the airport are severely damaged. New supplies arriving there are rapidly going to fill them up to capacity. If they're filled up to capacity, supplies are going to have to move to the frontier instead, which is a much slower route into the country, being trucked laboriously over difficult and damaged roads. So someone's going to have to take responsibility for trying to improve the transportation and logistics flows, or otherwise this entire aid effort is going to be deeply problematic because you just can't get in the resources that you need. So all of these things are going on. The event deck is going to throw difficult challenges, sometimes beneficial happenings to it to players. The coordination deck is going to allow players to benefit from taking the time to strategize and to coordinate. And frankly, the players are going to have to communicate with each other, because if you play this game without talking to your fellow players, without a coordinated strategy, you're going to fail, and the population of the city of Galassi is going to suffer. So that's what the game looks like when it sets up. Gameplay is usually timed. We strongly recommend the timed game. The game will therefore end at 2 hours. There'll be bonuses for finishing the game early, reflecting the fact that in a real humanitarian crisis, you don't have the luxury of infinite time to plan and to prepare your move. You have to act in a prompt fashion, and that introduces another tension into the game, the desire to spend your time being careful and thinking about your move versus the fact that, as in a real disaster, you're playing against the clock. So when you use the timed game, the game is always over in 2 hours because you're on a 2-hour clock, and at that point, you see whether you're in the positives or the negatives, whether you've won the game or whether you've lost the game. So that's AFTERSHOCK. It is, we think, a very good introduction to the interagency challenges of dealing with humanitarian crisis. The events deck, the coordination deck, the at-risk cards in the districts highlight the kinds of real-life challenges that humanitarian first responders face. And in addition to finding it an enjoyable challenge, we hope that you'll learn a lot about the challenges of humanitarian assistance in disaster relief operations.